This is Season 10, and this season we're focusing on the people who make data work, the data professionals shaping how business is run. From data engineers and scientists to stewards, analysts, and architects, these roles don't work in silos. They collaborate, balancing trust, governance, scale, and speed to turn raw data into real impact. Because data professionals aren't just supporting the business, they're driving it forward. This season, we'll explore how ideas become impact, the decisions, the day-to-day realities, and the challenges of building data-driven organizations. This is Let's Talk Data. Let's talk about the work that makes data matter.
Welcome to Let's Talk Data Podcast, Season 10. The key focus in this season is to cover topics relevant to data professionals with insights into the latest SAP technology and solutions. If you are an SAP BW engineer, basis administrator, a data architect, or a platform engineer, or an enterprise architect listening in today, this podcast is for you. We will have a technical conversation about modernization with SAP Business Data Cloud and how it fits into SAP's broader business AI platform strategy. I'm your host, Venkata Giduthuri. I am from SAP Technical Product Marketing, covering data and AI portfolio of products at SAP. To set the stage for this podcast, many of you are running SAP BW versions ranging from 3.0 all the way up to SAP BW for HANA 2023. You may be running SAP DataSphere or a hybrid landscapes stitched together with SLT, Smart Data Integration, Cloud Platform Data Services, or a mix of native HANA modeling. It all works, but it is fragmented. You are managing multiple engines, duplicating semantic layers, wrestling with data replication overhead, and trying to expose this governed data to AI and ML workloads. And these AI and ML workloads were never the first-class citizens in your original architecture. And the SAP Business Data Cloud changes that equation and makes AI agents first-class citizens of your architecture. To embark on the journey, SAP is actively helping customers migrate on-prem SAP BW, SAP BPC, SAP BusinessObjects, and SAP HANA running custom-built workloads to SAP Business Data Cloud. In this podcast, I will be focusing on SAP BW migration to SAP Business Data Cloud. To unpack insights, I have with me Justin Lynch, Principal Solution Architect, who primarily works with our SAP Max Attention customers in shaping their data warehouse and analytics strategies with SAP Business Data Cloud. And he also runs the SAP Data Architecture Programs. Justin, welcome, and thank you for joining the podcast to share your insights and recommendations. So if I miss anything, please add. Justin, welcome again.
Thank you, Venkata, for having me. I'm looking forward to today's discussion. A little bit more of my background than maybe I would add. So I've been with SAP 15 years now. I'm all from the Global Delivery Hub, and that means I've gotten exposure to a lot of topics helping our SAP customers on their analytics landscapes on the SAP side. So my primary focus has been BW, BW for HANA, DataSphere, and now Business Data Cloud. So I'm looking forward to our conversation today and sharing some more of these insights.
Thank you, Justin. So let's start with, why SAP Business Data Cloud is the right destination for our customers, especially, those who are running the on-premise BW, BPC, or business objects and HANA systems. Can you share some insights into why customers are deciding to modernize with SAP Business Data Cloud?
Certainly. So I feel like we're in a time of change. We have software that can do more than it's ever done before. We have all the benefits of what cloud technologies can bring us and how quickly we can get access to a system, as an example. And we have our business users and end users that want bigger, better, newer insights, and they want these things in a more timely manner. And we also have everything that AI is now bringing to the equation. When we look at our customers that may be looking at SAP Business Data Cloud, I would say they're really deciding what is next for them and how do they modernize their landscapes. and taking into consideration all the things that I just mentioned. A lot of our customers may be at this decision point because some of the products that they have may be either at or approaching an end of maintenance. For example, the BW 7.5 end of maintenance, and then maybe also, depending on the SAP BusinessObjects version, maybe approaching end of maintenance as well. For these, when they're approaching something like an end of maintenance, there's often not a just this is the next step. There's often many different paths or many different options to choose from. So when I think we're looking at things, as you mentioned, the BWs, the BPCs, the BOBJs, and the HANAs, all of these products involve data warehousing use cases where there's very deep technical modeling and semantics. There may be the reporting and the actual reports or the modeling that goes into those reports. There may be planning use cases, etc. But all of these analytics requirements can be achieved in Business Data Cloud. It's just a matter of working out what is the best path and best way to get there for our different customers.
Excellent. Thank you. We often, sometimes we say modernization, sometimes we use the word migration. I think the way you described it, to me, it's more of a modernization than migration to, BDC. Could you help shed some light into what exactly the modernization means to our customers currently running these on-prem deployments?
For sure. And yeah, these are two words that get interchanged often, but depending which angle you're looking at them, they certainly can have similar or quite different meanings. So let me give my take on this. When I think migration, I'm thinking a component of this whole picture, but I'm also kind of thinking of how we did things in the past. So what do I mean? So when I'm thinking migration, I'm more thinking this is a one-time transfer. This is a one-time move. We're getting to a target state, and that's pretty much it. Anything else that we would do is more optional, maybe gives us some benefits, maybe not as much. So a perfect example of this is, several years ago when HANA came out, we had a lot of customers in the BW space going from the current database they were on to BW on HANA. That was a database migration. So we're migrating the database from whatever database they were on over to HANA. So it was that kind of migration. Maybe there's data center migrations that customers may have worked, more recently, maybe going from on-premise to the cloud. But that is like you're doing this one-time shift and then operating kind of in that same way. You're not really getting any benefits unless you're really, adding a new version of BW, extending something, bringing in other data sets, etc. But when I look at modernization, that is definitely what I'm talking about when we're looking at BDC. And that's because when I see modernization, I'm looking at this as an ongoing transformation. And here in BDC, the idea would be to leverage all the great features of Business Data Cloud. So while this modernization to BDC may start with a migration, for example, leveraging BW PCE, taking from a BW on-premise and doing that lift and shift into the BW PCE, that would be the migration part. But there's going to be so much more after that with the data product generator, enabling all these BW artifacts to be these custom data products. And these are definitely things that, I hope we'll get to talk about a little bit more in our conversation.
Okay, cool. All right, I think with that, we can shift the gear and come to our focus area, which is the SAP BW modernization with BDC, right? So can you shed some light into what are the different modernization options? Because I keep hearing about multiple paths.
Sure. And what I'm going to do, I think, is keep this a little bit at more the options. There's obviously for customers' landscapes going to be many factors, whether it's different support package versions or, other things that are happening in the landscape. But if I look at this just from the lens of BW, I would more say there's two common options. That's going to be the lift and shift approach, or that's going to be more of the greenfield. So let's start on the lift and shift. So a customer can do a lift and shift of their current BW to BW PCE, as I just mentioned. And when they're there, then they can start leveraging what's called the data product generator, where that's going to enable us to build custom data products in BDC based off of the BW objects. So what does that give us? That basically helps us extend what we're doing in BW, but make it accessible in BDC. so that what a customer has built over the many years of their BW product, they're still able to leverage, and then make those artifacts still exposable and accessible downstream for things like reporting or outbound or other use cases. So what this really does is gives us time to transition fully to BDC, but still able to leverage your BW investments. But in the complete, other way, we have the greenfield option, and there may be customers that decide greenfield is better for them. They want to build everything native and in the latest and greatest semantics in what BDC offers, and that would be kind of a build from scratch. But there are going to be customers that would consider that as well.
Okay, so in your experiences, one thing that I kind of understand is greenfield is always challenging, right? And also often time consuming. And the challenge with the BW is, customers have invested a lot of time and effort in building their infrastructure where it is today to serve their business needs. So from your experience, what is the common path that customers are taking? Are they moving to PCA first and then gradually, modernizing with BDC, or, taking the greenfield approach path?
Yeah, I think when it's more of like a looking at the options and what's best for their given scenario, because there is so many other considerations that may not even be BW. So there may be scenarios around hardware and end of life there. There may be scenarios on how are you transitioning to, say, S4 HANA if that hasn't already been done. What is some of the connectivity with other things that you have to do, downstream and bringing your different data sets together. But I think when I look at what is the benefits and what are they getting out of these options, when you do the lift and shift option with and then leverage data product generator, being able to leverage your existing BW investments and doing it at a pace that you're comfortable with, there's definitely benefit to that. When you look at the greenfield option, it's the ability to have more of that leaner architecture and you're leveraging the latest and greatest. But why you would do one over the other kind of goes into that point. Like, are you able to leave behind what you've had and go more of that greenfield route? And like you said, that is certainly a big undertaking. But at the end, there's such a benefit that you've built out what you need and you're not having maybe the redundancy that you've built in your BW landscape over 10 plus years, or you're not having different flows that are almost achieving the same thing. You're really only having what you need. Or do you have the scenario where, you need to keep using BW and keep it going as you do this transition so that you can digest and kind of, take up the time from there. So I think there's, different reasons to go each route. There is no one that is better, but more what makes sense given the situation.
I know, you have been helping, several customers, and that's what you do on a day-to-day basis. So how can a customer get started on this journey?
So I think when you look at this, a lot of customers don't even know where to start. So that there is some decision coming up with this end of maintenance of a product, for example. That there's these different options and that BDC is now in the marketplace for over a year. But there's often a lot of questions of where do I go? What can I do? And then, the options I just discussed, what makes sense. So I think customers need help on getting started. And that is certainly where our BDC assessment is a great starting point because it can help look at the current systems. And when I say current systems, I'm, specifically talking about the BW system. But then also we have, components that could be for BobJ, HANA Sidecar, and or BPC as well to kind of give, where we have these dependencies and links. So our BDC assessment is definitely a great starting point to understanding what we're doing in the system today and how might things look, at least from a more higher level perspective.
Okay. And, when you do these assessments, what sort of, insights you typically provide to the customer so that they can decide, suitable options, in conversation with the experts such as you?
Yeah, so just to give a little bit like how this works and then what that means for the output. So In this BDC assessment, we're also trying to make it so that it's not very time consuming for the customer. So this is not something where, say, SAP notes need to be installed and transported or a series of data collectors running. This is all run off of SQL scripts that we provide. So when a customer signs up, we provide you the script. So if it's for your BW system, based off of your version, we have some BW scripts. We then process this output, and really it works the same way, whether it's BW, BOBJ, HANA, BPC. But when you provide that data, and we're not looking at say all the data in the system, we're more looking at inventory of objects. And then we're also looking at the statistics behind those objects. So if I take BW, for example, we're going to see things around the usage of the different objects in the system, the different info providers, the different data staging objects, some of the reporting objects. We're going to take a look at some of the data sources. Where is data coming from? How does it look like it's being used? Do you have 10 connections? Are all 10 connections actually being used? We're going to pull, where possible, some volume data. So not go to like a detailed sizing, but try to understand, where is the data footprint in your system? Is it a lot in your info cubes? Is it a lot in your advanced DSOs? Is there a split amongst the objects? We're also going to check some more just system side things around the add-ons. What we're also trying to make sure is, are there things that you need to be aware of? So when you look at add-ons, for example, most often they're just to run the BW system, but there may be things that we call out, that there is an older add-on that you're relying on a functionality. That add-on idea and concept is not something that is really in the end state. So needing to determine what happens with that. That may also be a driving factor. If you're using some technology or concept that, and maybe we discover it from the add-on, that may dictate if a greenfield option makes sense for you, or if you need to, go the lift and shift and kind of keep things going in the BW world. So we look at some of the add-ons, and then we're also looking at those, like I mentioned, the different source system connections and, how all of that is working. And for all of these, we give you as many different lens and viewpoints as we can. From the BW side, we're also certainly not just calling out the inventory, but looking at all the statistics tables. So pulling things from all these RS tables like RSDD stat, OLAP table, but also some of the more metadata BW processing RS tables as well. Same kind of idea for BOBJ, BPC, and HANA, but I would say less statistics that we provide and more inventory of objects. So for business objects, it would be more inventory of objects, looking at the connection types, looking at, are you using universes or direct connections? What are you doing in terms of scheduling? Where is it going? What type of report is being scheduled? Unfortunately for BOBJ, statistics are a little bit trickier to get with some scripts, as that relies on the audit DB, and that is, much more of a complex process to get working and then break down and digest. So we give you more from the inventory perspective. From BPC, what we're trying to uncover is BPC consolidations, and that would be more towards group reporting than in the future. Or is it more planning, and that would be more towards SAC planning? Is it some combination of both? And then on HANA, we're looking at the inventory of objects. Is this more just calculation views that you have in this sidecar data mart? Or is it, there much more to these developments? Is it just some small subset of data, or do you have thousands and thousands of artifacts that you created? I think what's also important when we look at the HANA assessment, is this covering the BW or the HANA in the BW? The answer is no. This is more focused on those different sidecar and standalone HANA scenarios. So that is some of the insights that we give. Again, we're having this be not as much effort from the customer to get us the data that we need, but to give you this starting point and this look on your system so that you can start to understand, what do we see and how might that look in terms of the future in BDC?
Okay, so if I understand it correctly, you essentially look inside the system about various types of objects and their usage history. Based on that, you come back to the customer with recommendations, the best approach, right? I think it kind of helps setting the right expectations both to the customer and SAP or whoever is an implementation partner, so that we can have much better visibility into the current state and what is the right path on the to-be architecture. I think, that makes perfect sense. Yep.
Yep, I'm glad you brought that
So,
up. So let me actually comment on that one. So what's interesting that I forgot to mention is what do we do with all this data? So typically we're going to do a readout to our customers, presenting some of these findings. So explaining the data that we have to provide, and then we're going to explain the transition options. And it may not always be the case that we can say this is definitely the path that you should go, but we may lean one way or another based off of what we see. Like I said, there are a lot of other factors and things that you don't get just from scripts. Like things that we may be missing is what is your historical or data retention requirements? We're not able to see that. We may not also know things, are there changes in your business, or are there other projects going on like a migration to S4 or a greenfield to S4? What are the timelines of that? There may be other factors. So we're going to kind of give, our high level overview on the options and what we're seeing in terms of your data set. But I'm glad you brought that up. I want to mention that we are typically presenting these results out to the customer so that they can all better understand what we did, how we did it, and what we're sharing with them.
cool. So I think one of the aspects, that I often hear is customers have, their preferred partners, often work with them very closely. And how can their partners be part of this journey? I'm sure, you must have worked with several customers where partners also have an active role. Could you shed some light?
Yeah, so I think the idea is to work very well and very close with the partners as well. So when you look at this assessment, we've had, different discussions with the customers on the readout where the partners are involved in the calls and asking questions. We've also had some scenarios where the partners are bringing to us, some of these requests as well to get a little bit more of an insight. So the idea is we want to work together and we want to, share this information. So, definitely, different ways that the partners are getting involved on these assessments, whether it's directly from them or via the customer. But, then sharing these outputs and sharing how we did it in some of the feedback, I think helps to jumpstart some of the processes that the partners may also be looking into as well.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Justin. So customers, if you are interested in taking advantage of free assessments offered by SAP to assess your readiness for modernization with SAP BDC, just go online, search for BW Modernization Assessment on Google or wherever, and you'll find a link to Modernization with SAP Business Data Cloud. Click on the link and apply to check your eligibility. It takes less than 2 minutes to fill the online form. And beauty of it is these assessments are free at no cost to the customers, and even partners can also submit the request on behalf of the customers. So it offers a perfect opportunity to discuss and select the right option to begin the modernization journey with BDC. So Justin, before we wrap up, any closing comments?
Yeah, I have two things that I want to share. So the first one is when you look at the BDC journey, it's one that brings a lot of benefits, but often knowing where to start or how to start is a challenge and might seem overwhelming given some of the factors that I discussed, and there's certainly more than that. And that's why I love this SAP BDC assessment and seeing the success and help that it's brought to our customers. I think it definitely sheds some light on the possibilities and really helps our customers and partners understand what deep dives may be needed in certain components, say, of BW, to really get that complete recommendation and decision on your path to BDC. So something I really, really encourage and recommend to everybody. And second, what I would say is, in our conversation today, Venkata, we focus a lot on the part about getting to BDC. But what I don't want to overlook is when we actually are in BDC, that it even more opens up the options for modernization. Being able to expand or even start, depending where a customer is in their AI use cases. How we're outbounding data. There's so many ways in integration technologies, and some work for this, some work for that. But there's so much potential for our customers with BDC Connect and using that zero copy Delta Share component to really make that process more efficient. And you look at other capabilities like the knowledge graph that we could look to leverage, even some of the semantic modeling and capabilities of things that may have been hard to do, with all the advancements that we're seeing, in our modeling capabilities. I really think that that's going to help. And then also what data products have to offer for us, I think is going to be a game changer for our customers too. So I think BDC has so many benefits, and it's easy to get caught up in how do we get there. But what we also need to remember is when we get there, there's a whole nother level that is opened up to our customers to really help on modernizing their whole analytics landscape. So I would say those are my 2 closing remarks that I wanted to share with everyone.
Thank you, Justin, for taking time to share your insights. And I'm sure listeners now understand why modernization with SAP Business Data Cloud is the first step in their journey towards building an autonomous enterprise. As AI technologies continue to evolve, let's ensure AI innovations provide a clear line of sight with auditability to build robust autonomous enterprise. And I always encourage, keep challenging the assumptions, embrace change, and lead with impact. Thank you for tuning in. If you found value in today's conversation, please do share it with your colleagues and friends. And I'll be back on another episode. This is Venkata Giduthuri signing off for now.
Thanks for listening to Let's Talk Data. If this episode sparked something for you, we want to hear about it. The questions you're asking, the challenges you're navigating, and the work you want to go deeper on. You'll find additional context and resources in the show notes if you want to go deeper. Subscribe so you don't miss future episodes, and stay tuned as we continue exploring how data professionals turn ideas into impact. Thank you for being part of the conversation.